Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Get Out of Rap. Today, we have a European contact center specialist, a European flavor to today. I'm really pleased to be joined by Michael De Decker, who is the co-creator of Memo, a contact center entrepreneur, and we're going to talk all things. And for those of you that have accused me of being too football centric, hopefully we've had the football conversation. So, Michael, thank you very much for joining me today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, no, I'm really looking forward to this. You've had a kind of storied career, including, I believe, and we'll get to it, but didn't you go to Harvard Business School in the US?
Yeah, it's a 3-year program that I just started in May this year. And it's amazing. It's to make a football reference, it's kind of like the Champions League of entrepreneurs. I was amazed by all of these others. I was, compared to these kind of businesses, I was just a small bit running a small business, and to learn from them, to learn about the case studies that Harvard presents, just the infrastructure, the atmosphere, like everything is just on point. So like I got 2 more sessions to go. From next year on, it's gonna, prepare me for the rest of my career, I guess. So, well, I'm quite sure of that. So
that's fascinating.
yeah.
And what was it like? So you're amongst other kind of entrepreneurs, and how do you deal with that? How does that feel?
Well, I've been joining organizations like entrepreneur organizations for a while. I've been a member of EO, which is kind of like a sister organization of YPO. To try to learn from other entrepreneurs, because sometimes you're in your own bubble all the time, and it's not only, let's say, in an operational bubble. You can also be in a strategic bubble, only your sector or whatever, and you need to learn from others, and you need to learn from examples, because basically what happens in business and all these patterns, they repeat, which is basically also what AI is. But I mean, like, these kind of patterns, these stories, you need to learn from that. That way you just prepare yourself better for the future, because we're in an industry, I think, you have a lot of listeners on your podcast, so everybody's quite excited to see what's going to happen in the next couple of years and decades in the industry, of course.
Definitely, and we'll get to the future and your kind of view on that. I'll be fascinated to know what you think, but what's been your career today? What's got you to this point now?
Oh wow. So I'm not going to start when I was born. That's too long ago. Let's not talk about that. No, I was always fascinated by IT. So when I went to university, I started studying engineering, electronics IT, which was basically 4 or 5 years of pure programming. And afterwards, I said, I don't want to write another line of code anymore in my life. And then I went up to networking and telecommunications. So in the meantime, actually, my mother started to get the contact center about 30 years ago. That was the contact center called Memo, was actually started by her. She was a nurse, and she started picking up the phone for doctors, really in the specific type of calls of like making the appointments and so on. And by the time I was getting out of university, the company was quite big. There were like 40, 50 employees. And I was like, I'm not going to join a family company. I want to do it by myself. So I went to Brussels. So I actually started my first business when I was studying, also in IT. So I was doing a lot of stuff at the same time. And then I started as a telecom engineer, which is basically building the networks. I mean, like the big networks, the Ciscos, the firewalls, load balancers. And this kind of technical stuff really triggered me. I absolutely loved it. And it's kind of like lucky it was quite adjacent to what telecommunication services. I did it for a couple of years, did a couple of startups, basically a long story. Then I started working part-time for the family company Memo. I think it was around 2012. Basically, the first move that I did was, make sure we virtualize everything. We had several customers with like old infrastructure coming in with like analog signals. They wanted this, they wanted that. So we basically made custom solutions for every customer. And so I wanted to like make that move to virtualization first, and it took some time, and also to get the people used to it. Even the work
Yeah.
environment of the agents were like they were working on servers in our own data center. And then 2018, we took over a similar contact center. We acquired them. So we became a group of like 5, 6 contact centers. We did a couple of small acquisitions. Basically, we grew to 120 agents, 130 agents, and one move. So then I made the choice to move the entire infrastructure back to Microsoft. Sorry if it goes a little bit too technical, huh?
No, keep going. I'll
I
stop
love
you.
this data center stuff. This is the
Yeah.
IT nerd in me is getting excited, right? So we moved everything into Microsoft Azure infrastructure, just to get the highest certifications, data security, and so on, because that is what our customers also demanded in pharmaceutical industry, in like critical alerts that we had to handle, all these doctors and patient communication. There's a lot of very specific data, so we wanted to be on the highest level. So we moved to Microsoft, which is very expensive, but on the other hand, it gives us a big advantage compared to other smaller contact centers that don't have the means to, like to install this kind of infrastructure. This is a bit of like more, how to say, focused on my contact center experience. And I think around 2015, I joined full time. 2018, we did the acquisition of the other contact center, and then 2021, about 2 years ago, my sister, who's the operational manager, and me, at that time I was the IT manager, we both became CEO, and we took over the company from my mother together with the private equity party, just to grow and to do a buy and build strategy. Now the last 2 years, a couple of things changed the last couple of months. What I've seen is that what the contact center wanted to go to, especially after COVID, and what I wanted to do is to really heavily invest in AI. We had like a bit of a difference in vision. So I'm still the co-owner of the contact center, but basically I stepped out of the contact centers in the beginning of July. I'm not operationally involved. But I'm actually taking some IP. I'm going to talk later about that, taking some IP from the contact center and do some technology with that. So that's kind of exciting. Yeah.
It sounds exciting. And that kind of whole journey, but just before we get into that, how was it? I'm just thinking about, I have a younger sister. How has it been working with the family in such a fast-paced environment? Did it feel natural, or were there did you have to make the distinction between actually within this contact within work, you're not really my sister, you are the title, or is it?
We were kind of drilled from my mom to make the separation between business and family, and we also told like other people joining in meetings like we're brother and sister. There's going to be like maybe some very intense discussions, but know that there's nothing but love between us. So like to get that right. So I think like we created sort of open communication. It's something also in that culture that created in the company, which is basically that's also one of the things that we learned in Harvard, which is so important to get your mission right, to get your values right, and make sure that they're respected from top to bottom. So we put a lot of effort in that, which means like we treat our agents like they are our own family. So they can sit anywhere. We had a lot of remote working. When you come into our building, there's like a 12-meter high waterfall. There's a lot of, there's trees over there. There's fresh fruit. So we really wanted to get our agents, because they're handling these type of, very specific calls. We wanted to treat them the best way possible. So we don't have a dynamic workforce. They're all people with us who have been, between 5 and 15 years in the company. They know their clients personally.
Yeah.
So, and also the way we work is like in smaller teams, which have their own specific type of customer. We have like medical teams. We have teams for like critical calls, teams for IT companies, like doing ticketing, understanding what actually IT incidents are. Actually, the best example is we have something for funeral companies, which basically if you have somebody in the family, and who died, and you want to call the funeral company, you need to have somebody who is actually very empathic. So we train our employees specifically on that. We have a special team for that. So, by creating this kind of like open environment. Everybody's well respected. They're treated very well. You know, it is a family, and you know, in your own family with your sister, you know, you can have like very fast exchange. That's how we did it.
I kind of like that. You know, I spent a bit of my career working in Istanbul, and whilst like generalizations are huge and dangerous often, but I think they believed me to be some initially before meeting me, maybe introverted, stiff upper lip English person. And they kind of pre-warned me, look, in our meetings, you're going to see emotions that maybe you don't see. I dynamism that you might get from siblings, very much equivalent to what I witnessed, which was people could be really passionate. And at first, it was a bit disarming to see in a workplace. But then straight away afterwards, I found that it's far more open and honest than going through some niceties and then afterwards moaning about someone, rather than kind of just going through it all in that moment. You know, it was really liberating.
It can be intense. Like, you know, there's for example, we also have a business, like a coach. It's not a business coach. I mean, like a coach in the company that actually coaches. He's a psychologist, and he coaches both the C-level and both the management on a regular basis. They go
That's
away for a
brilliant.
couple of days. Yeah, that's what you need. You know,
Mm,
especially in that kind of environment.
mm.
And you said it there, like in that kind of environment, how do you cope being a family? You know, like make sure your people stay. Like all of this, it's about culture.
And we were brought together by our some mutual friends at Sabio, and you had. Am I right in thinking there was an implementation project done with
Mhm.
them? Could you just talk about that for a sec? What was that about?
It's well, the project is still ongoing right now. We started to work with Sabio, and we made, you know, we did a lot of preparation on the project just to get it right, because this is, you know, we're in a revolution of contact centers, so we wanted to have the right partner on that. Um, Now, a couple of years ago, just the beginning of COVID, we started thinking. Well, I was doing the innovation and the well IT finance and all this like technical stuff. My sister is more on the operations, the HR things. And I was thinking like, okay, as a contact center, we have to be, you know, adopt AI in a good way. We're already doing some, you know, some smart work of like predicting, like why would somebody call, getting some history and, you know, making the connections, but to really, you know, make a revolution, because we didn't want to be the contact center that actually deploys basic chatbots. Um, and the information that we're working with, the instructions, the customers, what they expected from us was like way more than just answering a couple of questions. It
Yeah.
was like it was like following up engineers. That, you know, it's very specific instructions that we got. Um, so I said like, okay, you know, we need to start doing this. But the way I saw AI acting in our contact center, in our environment, was to be the assistant of our agents. You know, if we can eliminate, and that is been our philosophy for a lot of years, if we can eliminate all of the repetitive tasks from an agent, which is basically even like copy or paste or whatever, we made like XML solutions just to automate as much as possible. It makes the agent happier and makes the client happier and the people calling happier. And then at the end, it will make us happier because the client is happier. So so I said like, okay, if we can take those repetitive tasks and make a sort of robot for them, that would be the right way to implement AI. So I've been writing down the project, and there's like in Belgium, there's a lot of government support for innovation. So I wrote a project down that I thought was innovative enough, and I asked for a subsidy on it. So afterwards, it takes a lot of time. It's like, of course, government. But our intention, or the goal of the project, was to have sort of like, first of all, for the agents, sort of predictive analytics. They will just, you know, they will listen, they will really listen, and they will not type. And actually, the assistant of the agent will provide an action suggestion. So could it be this action we have to do? Could it be that action? And once they click it, you know, they have to verify the data. and the action would be automated. It's like sort of automated flow. And to learn from that and actually learn from history and get all of the automation, more fluent in the future. It's just like machine learning. The more data you give it, the smarter it gets. So we got the subsidy, which was like, big, really good news. And then we started seeing like, okay, what is the big problem? What is that we have to overcome to help clients and to deploy some solution? And basically it's the access to the data. And if we want to have, if we want to serve customers in their communication to their clients, which is what a contact center does, whether it's email, chat, or like any type of communication, even video. We've been investing in video for years now. Any type of communication, we have to offload our customers from the overhead that they get from that. Right, so we said like, okay, we need all channels. We need access, the easiest access to all of that data. And once we started searching for that, it was quite easy to find the right solution, which was Twilio. And then once we had Twilio, we started searching for the right implementation partner. And yeah, so obviously it became Sabio then. After a couple of meetings, how they handled projects, how their approach, and so on, their expertise. So we chose for them. And so we've been preparing since, let's say, January till May on all the preparation of the project, what we need to achieve, et cetera, and now they're in full development. And the way things are going, I heard it was going really good. So that's also part of the IP. I will use also to develop a solution later, or maybe a company. Let's say that.
Well, let's just touch on something you said then. There's a couple of things. One, that at a granular level, and this is where I started when I left uni, was on the phones, and to be able to just listen, and then to be able, are you saying that you are presented with possible solutions, which might be, you might want to take the customer here, you might want to do this action, you might want to do that action, and then each time I interact with that, if the outcome's correct, and then through machine learning, the system gets more and more adroit at kind of choosing the right things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That is fascinating.
Now, if we go more into technical details, I will keep it a bit high level, but what it actually needs is getting that data and then structure it. And once you structure it, it makes sense. And if we can do that on a scalable way for over 800 customers, that's just a great solution, because it gives, let's say, smaller companies access to this kind of like technology, which are actually, only the big companies are deploying right now, because they can actually invest, like having 5 engineers, making sure they have the access to that data.
So this is like the democratization then, true innovation of access to technology. So yeah, if you are within a small company, you have as much opportunity to demonstrate that capability as if you were in a much bigger one.
Yeah, exactly. But it's far more difficult, because I see it a little bit the same as when we had the first information revolution. Let's say when big companies, that were all banks were installing mainframes. Other companies were installing like servers. Up until the moment that smaller companies started to get like some hosting or their own little server, and what they wanted to have is their website, some interface towards their customers. So I think the second revolution is now coming. So the first one was actually, you want to present information towards your customers, so customers can search and get the right information about your company. That is like your customer is actually pulling information from the internet. AI is actually doing that revelation. It's flipping it. It's actually pushing you information. I was just searching. Tomorrow I leave on a holiday. I was searching for hikes. I'm not going to search like best hikes, whatever. I'm ask ChatGPT or a couple of other AI bot, whatever. I get like a list. Perfect. Thank you. Right formats. No work. No work whatsoever. And so the second revolution. How do we want to enable smaller companies to also be part of that sort of push-based internet? Sorry, it's actually making sure they have access to their data, then finding the right. It's not a website. That's going to be AI tools. It's going to be different AI tools. It's going to make sure that whatever the customer is asking, they get the right information immediately. that is where I think, you know, the internet is going in the future.
And where do you think contact centers sit in that? Are we at the forefront, or have we still got some work to do?
I will revert with a question. How many years, you're also in the contact center, in how many years did you hear like, oh, chatbots are going to change the game like this year? how many how
Well,
many times did you hear that?
I used to joke with my friends that a lot of the time you could go to a conference, and I remember for a long time thinking there's bound to be one of the titles of the speeches is going to be Agent 2020, and it will have an image of a robot, you know. And I said, what are they going to do when we get to 2020 and nothing really has changed that much?
Well, I think, you know, I think to answer the first question, I think agents are always going to be, you know, essential in contact centers. I think the type of service that they will do is going to be different. There always going to be some human intervention. You know, I come from an IT background. I love innovation. I love gadgets. I love to play with ChatGPT. But still, you know, like, you know, what we do in business, it's always human centric. You know, up until the moment that maybe companies will start their own chatbots or AI bots will start their own companies, maybe then, you know, they won't need any agents anymore. But I think human interaction will always be essential. If you have a medical situation, you want to have a human online. If you know, the same thing for funeral services, you want to have a human online. You want to, sometimes you want to talk to somebody, and if that somebody is totally focused on you instead of writing things down or so on, that will just raise the quality of the service.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because actually, the operation in Istanbul was partly access to doctors and medical based, um, and then for a company I worked for after that, one of our clients was a funeral provider in the UK, and that kind of, I think you've probably heard these types of interactions as well, where the agent isn't actively listening. So I heard of one call in particular where the customer says, "Look, I'm really sorry. I'm calling you because my partner's passed away," and the agent said, "Great." And it's because that they were doing something else. You know, they were maybe logging onto a system or closing down a window, and they heard something and they just went, "Yeah, great." You know, and it just felt so awful. Of course, it was a very minor one-off, but those, you're dead right, those types of interactions where a human can pick up on, is this silence something I should jump into, or shall I wait? Let me wait, because I can feel like I feel there's emotion here from the customer, so I'm gonna wait. But in terms of um I've always said to people, our industry gets a bad reputation from actually, like you, if you are fully into technology and innovation, then the contact center industry is a great one to be in. From that sense, do you think we should be enthusiastic about the future from our industry?
um, you might want to cut now. Like, I might have like 10 minutes of like thinking time before I can answer this. But
I'll
should we
reduce
be
the gap.
uh, should we be enthusiastic? I think if you ask anybody in the contact center industry who is you know, who has some affiliation to technology, like, and you ask them, how would you start a contact center right now? Everybody will have an ID, because they know, you know, they know things are coming. And I think that's a question we should all ask. Like, what if we start from zero now today? Like, how should we do it? And maybe make like the delta between how it's going right now and how should we do it? Because if you go into a mindset of, you know, like, we gotta make sure that we handle data the right way, you don't have to like go really far a bit, but handle it just the right way, the correct way, following the law, following what consumers want. If you want to offer a service and be open to other technologies, actually help your customer with other technologies, I think you can be of great value. I think what is coming is overwhelming all of us, right? So I think it's about, using common sense, being just open for technology, and, listening to your customers. And if a customer says like, I need something that can actually help me get, help me get away from all of this overhead, and you have a solution that will cost that customer maybe like only half of what it costs to take over the full service, and say, this is good technology, we can actually stand by on that. I think that is the way we should go. Just listen to your customer and help them, and not be taking a distance from like the technology, or like, we're doing this, humans will always be better. No, be open for it, test it, benchmark it, make sure you have the right information.
Do you think there's a tendency then to overcomplicate what we're doing?
Absolutely. I think, it's changing so fast. The pace, just the nature of communicate with each other is changing so fast. Everybody's saying, okay, like young people, they do everything digitally. They book their own appointments. They don't call for an appointment, but it's normal because they were raised with like Facebook. They have like textual conversations since they were like 5. When I was 10, I had to call to my hopefully girlfriends at that time and hope I don't have a dad online. I had to talk. So the way we communicate is changing. So, it's a bit of I'll say, new era we're going to. I have a lot of thoughts about that, so I don't know like how to make a clear answer on that question.
Now,
but
one of the things that people ask me and they talk about is something you raised earlier around when you've gone to conferences and people are asking you, well, what do you think's changed? One of the things that people will say is all of this technology sounds amazing and I'm really excited about it. But if you came to my contact center right now, I still very much old school, dealing with a lot of our stuff is in Excel. We feel like we're being left behind for that, and that still makes up a majority of, well, no, it's still a significant number of, certainly in the UK, the contact centers that still have a reliance on manual inputting of data and exporting of data and that kind of thing. For those people, where would you say they start? What would be the next best step for bringing themselves up to date?
I would say start over. Like any type of system you use, it starts with like the just the contact center software you're using. If that is old, start over. Don't put these things in old systems. You have to use a new system. I think that is where it all starts. And then, like you can build up from that. You can get the data out. You can, get an application for that. If you use a standard system, there's going to be like millions of applications available, or like coding is going to change also. So, like it will be easy to have your own application like within a couple of years on that. So I think it all starts with like, how do you communicate? If it's still, like that, first buy headsets, I mean, if it's still like a copper wire, like go to voice over IP. If you're still working on a desktop, make sure you have like a browser-based environment. Like start with those like basic revolutions. That's the basic evolution, sorry.
And your next iteration, then your next is very much around the importance of data governance, quality, but the application of technology around that, right?
Yeah. So one of the things that is how to say, you have GDPR in Europe.
Yeah.
It's something in between like legal and IT. I've been doing that in finance and like for some big companies on like data governance, and somewhere it's always like at the end you have a lawyer talking to an engineer, and then it's really funny at that time. But the thing is, like, all the philosophy behind GDPR and just like good data governance, it's about, you know, making sure you protect and don't, it's data is like toys, and if you have kids, you know, like at a certain moment it will be everywhere and you cannot clean it anymore. It's the same thing. So if you have like, and I think the technology is right for that, everybody's using now an invoicing system where they send an invoice and they get the right data out of that, even if it's written, you know, they get it out. So basically you can do the same with like all of these conversations, and if we then make sure that you get like names out, you get like credit card numbers out or whatever, you get a transcript of everything, you delete all the rest of the data, and then you structure it in what is sensitive data, what is metadata, and what is real context, I say conversational data, that actually then any AI tool can easily use that and understand. You know, it's, for example, in GDPR, they ask the possibility to get their that a customer can ask their personal data to be removed from any type of system. This kind of way, it's quite easy because you just go to the sensitive data. You're like, delete this kind of line, and you know, you're compliant. And of course, there's a lot of, you know, like other theories about like, yeah, but if you still have that data, you can connect this and that and that. But then it's all about security measures. And make sure your security is a sort of, how to say, methodologically, you know, implemented everywhere, physically, digital security, legal security. If you have all these things in place, you're set for the future. So this is what I believe very strongly.
And is this the kind of thing that you are going to be, be doing? You're going to be thinking about how this manifests itself and can be used across our industry, or is it not going to be industry specific?
Let's say, you know, the phase I'm in right now, because, you know, I've been writing down this project. I put my heart and my soul of like working in the finance, in data governance, in telecommunications, in the contact center, and the family. Like everything is together in this belief of like how we should do it, how we should handle data. The IP I'm taking, like, it's gonna it's gonna be a big part of that technology. The second thing is, of course, coming from Harvard, I realized, okay, now you got to build a business with this. And I think the technology and the business case is a fully, you know, it's a total other thing. You really got to think about the business case, like how we're going to help companies and what companies are asking for this and actually want to pay for that. And who are the stakeholders? Let's create a value chain. So I'm still working that out just to make sure, like, you know, where can we make a big difference here? Because it's also, you know, there's a lot of other things involved. You help smaller companies with this technology, you help consumers, you help like all of the, how people think about data. I also invested in a startup about people managing their own data, because I really truly believe in it. So yeah, it's by the way, it's called Rita Personal Data. I would advise everybody to download it on your phone. Like it's a wonderful app, but you know, it's all about data in the future.
Say that. Can you say that again?
Rita Personal Data, RITA Personal Data. So you actually download your data from Google, and then you can broker it to several companies. You can do data sharing for yourself. What actually Google is making a lot of money on, you can do it yourself right now.
Wow.
And I think up until the time we have another breach like Cambridge Analytics, I think people are still in this kind of like haze or mist of like, you know, what is there, like, what are they doing with our data? We don't know. Once we get like big shock, I think like there's going to be a big revolution also to that consumers demand that their data to be handled the right way.
How does that impact you in your interactions then with your own data? Is there any, because I think just even hearing you talk about this now makes me think, am I just naive with my own data?
I think it's very interesting to see what happens with your data. I would advise you to download it and just see how much Google already made on your data. It's ridiculous. I think for me it's about 15K euro.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. And then you see like the other companies using the data, and then you start like seeing how they broker your data. Yeah. And
Well,
it's scary. Yeah? It's what Facebook does, it's what Google does, it's what Amazon does, it's what they all do.
it's like you say, I mean, data is, you said children's toys, which I absolutely love, but data is king, isn't it, really, when you think about everything that we're doing. And the contact center world, very much that kind of taking, using data, exchanging data. Every single person listening to this now will have is involved in that movement of data from provider to service provider, and all of that kind of thing. It has taken this idea into Harvard Business School been great for you to like mold it and start to, or has it led to a lot of introspection?
Well, you mentioned something funny, because there was a pitching competition like Shark Tank, and we were in we're like 180 entrepreneurs, but we're like all in smaller groups of like 10. And then there was a competition. We all had to choose our own startup, whether it's from an existing business or like a new business, and we had to pitch that to each other. So there were like 18, I think around 18 groups. And we all did the pitch, and eventually, like, I pitched it with that technology, with a business idea that was molded with my other living group members, who were fantastic, because I told him about the technology and we started just brainstorming. And there was this one guy called Adam. I love him. And he just called me at one time. He said, like, I got it. It's a box. It's a data box. It's where each small business owner wants to connect all of their data, what it's in their back end and their front end towards their customers, all of their chats, and it just does everything. And I was like, great, that's the idea we pitched, and it got a lot of like positive feedback on that. We didn't win the pitch. There were like other amazing, sorry, I wanted to say dude, like great entrepreneurs. But eventually I got some really good feedback from Belgium on that. I got some from Belgian entrepreneurs, got some really good feedback there from other people, some interested customers already. So but I need to make sure that all the chess pieces are in the right place to make sure we can make this happen. But I think Harvard was a big validation on, this is very interesting. This is there's a lot of demand on that. There's a lot of awareness is growing in that. So and I wanted to thank all of my other participants of the Harvard program for that, of course.
What does it teach you about yourself as a person?
The course, you mean?
Yeah, or going through it.
First of all, I was very happy to benchmark myself towards other entrepreneurs, to get into sort of like high performing environments, and study and being open to learn. I'm so excited every time I learn, but it's like a validation again. Like you get this, they say, like, they make the comparison, it's like drinking out of a fire hose. The knowledge you get, like it's really just overwhelming. Just being able to handle that and to talk with others, to learn from them, to also being open for new ideas, to really be like, at some point it's like, Michael, you're totally wrong. It's like, okay, you take that from the it's just like, it just expands your mind completely. But it's also like, I gotta say, it's a bubble. You're 3 weeks in this environment, you come out of there and you're like, whoa, what was this? So I think like it's a transformative experience, really. And I can't wait to go back for 3 weeks next year, and then the year after another 3 weeks. It's and even in the meantime, they're following up on you. So I can always talk to these other people. It's a network really bonded very strongly. So yeah, it's a part knowledge, skills, networking, soft skills. It's total package.
Well, look, I would love to kind of touch base, like, oh, what a horrible term. Sorry. Oh, I need a bleep for that one. But I would love to kind of stay in touch and maybe revisit and just sort of kind of come along with you in the evolution of this?
I would love to, because for me, it's also, I'm quite curious what we're going to learn in the second session, because I was like, damn, like how much did we learn? I've already got, I feel like, I'm not going to say I got smarter, but I learned so much, and like, I got 6 more weeks to go. So I would love to also share that. And it's wonderful to, come back and talk to, because I'm doing some investing, some angel investing. I'm also participating in the fund, and being in touch with these other entrepreneurs to make this new kind of connections in your head. Like, okay, this is happening. Like, okay, I can relate that to this kind of pattern that I've seen, or like with this business that I heard of, or with this person that I heard of. I can get some advice, and it's just like the amount of connections in my head is like boom, went like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm very much looking forward. Sorry.
Well, you've got a new connection now with me, and of course with everyone that's listening. But Michael De Decker, thank you so much for coming on and just sharing. It's gone so, the time's gone so quick, but I've really enjoyed it.
It was my pleasure, Martin. Thank you so much.